Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Carving Up Live right here on Facebook Live, YouTube, and on Twitter. As always, I'm Bryson Carver, and for the second or I guess third straight show, I want to go ahead and leave a disclaimer right at the start because I do have a little issue with my vocal cords. I don't know what is going on. Sometimes I'll talk and maybe I'll just stop like that, and maybe I have to cough or something. I don't know what it is. It's not COVID. Don't worry, I tested negative. But it's just something like kind of restricting me a little bit. So I'll try to get through the show with as little of those as possible, but just want to let y'all know it may happen. But we have a pretty packed show for you guys today. So I'm going to talk about Tom Brady to start the show. There's sort of this really weird, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist guy in the slightest. I hate it. But there's this really weird dynamic going on with this whole Tom Brady retirement speculation by what Tom's saying, by what the reports are coming out of Tampa Bay, and I'm going to discuss it just a second to start the show. Also, my man hasn't been on the show in a while, Alfred Parsard Jr. from the Metropolitan Report. He'll be joining Carving Up Live, and I think Barry's ready to go. Our friend, our mutual friend, Barry Grant Jr., my man, he says popcorn ready. It's going to be interesting. So we're going to discuss the whole Hall of Fame issue with baseball. Obviously, Alfred's a big Mets fan. I'm sure Mike Piazza will come into the discussion. Great Mets player. So, the whole Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens issue, we're definitely going to hit it all head on. And Barry asked, why must we talk about Tom Brady? Well, you know why we must talk about Tom Brady. Barry, it's because he's the greatest quarterback who ever lived. He's the greatest player in the history of the NFL. In my opinion, he's the greatest athlete in the history of American team sports. But we can always discuss and debate that another day. But at the end of the show, it's the elephant in the room. It's conference championship weekend. We got two games back-to-back, 3 o'clock Eastern, 6:30 Eastern, AFC and NFC Championship games. Winner of those two will head to Super Bowl 56 at SoFi Stadium. Beautiful SoFi Stadium. But let me start with Tom Brady. I wanted to talk about this on yesterday's show, but because there were so many topics, I guess so many more immediate topics, Sean Payton and the Hall of Fame, obviously, and Big Ben Roethlisberger. So a lot of things, James Harden. So I wanted to just save it and leave it to lead the show off with today. So I said at the end of Monday's show, it was my last topic on Monday's show about Tom Brady retiring or not retiring. And I said, here's what I think is going to happen. This is the first time that Tom's ever even seriously discussed retirement. I mean, Big Ben, God bless him, but he's talked about retirement for the last 4 years. That's all he's talked about. Aaron Rodgers has been discussing it the past couple of off seasons. Matter of fact, I think Aaron's more likely to retire than stay, not just in Green Bay, but in the NFL. Remember Brett Favre? And that mess in Green Bay every year. I'm going to retire. I'm not going to retire. I'm going to retire. I'm not. It's like, Brett, just make up your mind, man. We're ready to move on for you. If you retire, if you want to stay, then great. Well, we'd love for you to stay and throw 40 touchdowns, but just make up your mind, okay? Quit putting the fans and the organization, everybody, through all this nonsense. Tom Brady's never been that guy. As I used the example last year when the Buccaneers won the Super Bowl, Tom won Super Bowl MVP, and the great Jim Nantz was up on stage interviewing Tom. And he asked him, as Tom's holding the Lombardi trophy, obviously all smiles with his family around him. And Jim asked you, you coming back for more football next year? And so Tom said, oh yeah, we're coming back. I think that was his exact quote. Oh yeah, we're coming back. It's like, okay, there you go. That puts that to rest. Tom Brady's going to play football next year. But this is the first time that we've really ever heard, oh yeah, Tom Brady may actually seriously consider retirement. And it was weird to me because the first I heard, I think the general public heard about this was early Sunday morning when Schefter put it out there. Adam Schefter, the great insider for ESPN, saying that, hey, there's some belief that Tom might be considering retirement. And I was thinking, that's kind of weird. Because, yeah, I play. I'm not going to play right now, but I always play the funny soundbite of Gronk doing the question, can Tom Brady play to 50 years old? And I'm like, I think if he wanted to, who says he can't? It's Tom Brady. I'm not going to bet against it. But I was like, I don't think 50 was ever in Tom Brady's, mindset or goal. But we do know longevity means a lot to Tom. And we do know that for the last 3 or 4 years, he hasn't been talking about retirement, but he has been talking about, hey, I'd like to play to 45 years old. We've heard even Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson's, closer to 30 than 40, and even he's talked about, hey, I'd like to get to 45. The sciences and the nutrition and how these guys take care of their bodies day in and day out, especially with the rules about not being able to hit quarterbacks. Sure, you can absolutely play to 45 years old if you can still contribute at a high level, which clearly Tom can. Led the NFL in pretty much every major statistical category for a quarterback. Most touchdown passes, most yards, completions, all the major quarterback stats pretty much went to Tom Brady. And so it was weird to me that out of the blue, Tom may retire. This may be his last game today if they lose to the Rams. I was like, whoa, wait, hold on a second. What's that about? And hearing Tom talk about it, I'm not going to take his post-game comments after the loss. I'm not going to give it too much merit because, look, we can't, let's be real. I'm not disregarding what they say, what athletes say in the post-game. But if you win, you're elated. All you're thinking about is the win. You're excited. You're ready to move on to the next game, especially in the case, say the Los Angeles Rams. People ask, what's that matchup going to be with San Francisco next week? And they're like, I don't know. We just won this game. I'm trying to enjoy this one. We'll move on to San Francisco tomorrow, right? Enjoying the moment. As for the losing team, in this case, Tampa Bay, in the case of Tom, it's like all Tom's thinking about is the loss. All Tom's thinking about is what could I have done better? What if I had not, been strip sacked in my own territory in the fourth quarter? What if I had not thrown that interception late in the first half? What if I had hit Scotty Miller on that fourth down in the fourth quarter? We could have won the game even with me making all those mistakes. So if I don't make those mistakes, how could we have corrected that? That's what Tom's thinking about. I don't think he was really thinking a ton about retirement in that moment. I do, however, take his comments the next day on his Let's Go podcast on SiriusXM with Jim Gray, where he was being asked by Gray about possible retirement and things of that nature. And all of the answers that Tom gave, I'm not knocking him for this, I'm just telling you what he said, were all about family and being there for my kids and my wife. The kids are getting older. It was all family-based answers, which isn't necessarily all that common for an athlete talking about a possible retirement. When athletes are considering retirement, yes, they bring up their families. But more times than not, it's the grind, man. Like it's tough year in and year out to put your body through so much, and the grind of the off season and watching film and the meetings and this and that. Tom loves that. They show. I remember watching the Tom versus Time documentary on Facebook a few years ago when he was still with the Patriots, and he talked about how much he loved watching film. I'm like, I haven't met people that just absolutely did it. People did it because, they want to work hard, get an advantage, and get an edge on their opponent. But Tom actually loves it. Tom loves the offseason grind. For Kobe Bryant, when he retired in 2016, yes, he wanted to be there for his wife and kids. Of course, we all know the ultimate girl dad that Kobe Bryant was. But he talked about, look, man, my body can't take much more of this, because he had all these injuries late in his career. At one point in this retirement speculation, as Tom brought up his body, has he brought up the commitment, the drive? Maybe somebody else knows something I don't know. I haven't heard Tom bring that up once. And so it's, I don't know. Excuse me. There it is. There's the voice box. There's my cough getting me. But I don't know. It's just weird that he had one of, in my opinion, you could argue it was the second or third best regular season of his career. Like the best regular season he ever had was 2007 with Randy Moss. That was video game numbers. But at 44 years old, he just had one of the best years of his career, which in 22 years, that's pretty good. And then just out of nowhere, I remember Tom Brady's dad years ago, as 4 or 5, Tom Sr., was asked about, hey, one day, what would it take for Tom Brady to retire? He said he'd have to be dragged away. He would have to be dragged away from the game of football. I think the evidence we've seen, especially since Tom has hit 40 years old, I think the evidence we've seen has pretty much backed that up. And so it's just weird to me that Tom, for years, I want to play till 45, I want to play to 45, and just out of nowhere, to the known world, to the media, to the fans, retire 1 year short of that when he still had a great year. Maybe he has come to the realization. By the way, Tom actually did bring up Kobe when talking about, Kobe retired. He wanted to be with his family. You don't know how much longer you have in this life and with your family. Totally get that. And this is Tom's personal decision. I'm not in any way saying Tom should or shouldn't. All I am saying is this. It is a little weird that this sort of just out of nowhere. We hadn't heard any speculation until Sunday. None. I don't think I've ever done a segment on Carving It Up about Tom Brady even possibly retiring. Not even this season. So, I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's just kind of a weird dynamic. I don't know. It's just, it's funny. I'm trying to sort of process it and how it would possibly work. But look, Tom's a great player, and whatever he wants to do, that's his decision, man. He's the greatest quarterback who ever lived. He's the greatest NFL player ever. My opinion, he's the greatest athlete in the history of team sports. It would be great for Tom, unlike a Peyton Manning, for example, where Peyton wasn't being kicked out the door by Denver whatsoever. But Peyton, we talk about the wheels falling off. Man, the wheels fell off like a year before that for Peyton. I mean, his last season, he had like 9 touchdown passes and 17 interceptions. Peyton was garbage. Garbage his last year. I love Peyton. I think Peyton's the 3rd greatest quarterback ever behind Montana and Brady. But Peyton was garbage his last year. Like, when he won that Super Bowl, I was like, okay, Peyton, retire. Peyton, he's one of my favorite players ever. Peyton, please, for me, for the fans, for you, retire. This is your golden opportunity. You win and you ride off into the sunset. The sheriff rides off into the sunset. Ray Lewis could still play, but the issue for Ray Lewis was injuries. He had a major injury, in that season in 2012. Plus, he had already said beforehand that that was going to be his last year. Derek Jeter, we knew it was going to be his last year. Kobe, we knew it was going to be his last year. Heck, Big Ben, we knew it was going to be his last year. So, I don't know. It's a little baffling to me that it just comes out of nowhere. After what his dad, and I think his dad knows him pretty well, has said. When Thomas said, hey, look, Giselle wanted me to retire at 40. I want to go to 45. Well, he's closer to 45 than 40. So I don't know. Just the math aspect of it, the optics, I guess. I don't know. It is what it is. We're still waiting on Alfred to come on Carving It Up. Totally understand that. Let's talk a little bit about. You know what? This is actually a great opportunity here, because we had a couple games last night. I won't touch too much on the first one because the team that lost is irrelevant. But let's talk about the second game. Not necessarily about Minnesota. I mean, I like Minnesota. I think they're going to get in the play-in. The Minnesota Timberwolves I'm talking about. I think the Timberwolves are going to get in the play-in. And, hey, they may get in the playoffs, and Karl Anthony Towns is one of the best bigs in basketball without a doubt. And you have guys like Anthony Edwards, who is – I love watching that kid. I love watching Anthony Edwards. He's such a likable guy. I wasn't huge on him coming out of Georgia. I said in the 2020 draft, I'd have taken James Wiseman number 1, LaMelo Ball number 2, and Anthony Edwards 3. Well, now looking back, LaMelo 1, Anthony Edwards 2, and James Wiseman, of those 3, definitely, I could say this as a Warriors fan, a distant third. And I hope the kid gets healthy. I really do. Barry's back to the Tom Brady point. He says, here's the thing though, Bryson, when you get to a certain age, things are day to day. You may have just realized how much time he's missed. It kind of just smacks you in the face. Yeah, you make a good point. And like I said, I'm not bashing Tom on the slightest. I'm just simply saying that it's weird that this sort of came out of nowhere. And like you said, maybe that was the case for Tom. Maybe Tom Brady sat back and was like, wow, timeout. My oldest is 14. Dang, he about to go to high school soon. So that, you make a good point. Maybe that does factor in. Maybe Tom's like, well, shoot, I am 44 years old. You know, here's another aspect to it in the defense of Tom's family, particularly his wife. Giselle was really the GOAT of modeling, and she stepped away to take care of the family and has done a remarkable job, by the way, so that Tom could focus on football. So from her perspective, she's like, hey Tom, I stepped away so you could succeed, so you could have a clear mind. I got the kids. During the football season, I got the kids. You focus on football. Maybe from her perspective, that's where she's looking at. And that is absolutely fair. It's fascinating. It really is. I obviously, selfishly as a fan, I hope Tom doesn't retire. I just one more year. Like for me, I'm like, please, Tom, give us one more year. But if he feels it, that this it's time to call it quits, then that's what he should do. That's what he should do. And look, I remember talking about this about Larry Fitzgerald a year ago when Fitz, or it wasn't a year ago, but it was like during training camp, and Larry Fitzgerald was on this exact same podcast, the Let's Go podcast. And he was talking about, Jim Gray was like, would you be open to returning to the Cardinals? Would you be open just to coming back in the NFL in general? And he says, I don't know if like my head and my heart are really in it. And I remember saying on the show, you can look it up. I said, okay, then step away. Like you cannot be in the NFL and be kind of half in, right? You can get hurt that way. You can not be your best self in that way. So I'm like, Fitz, you have other commitments, right? You got a family. I'm sure you have other business interests. Focus on that. If you have more of a drive and a desire to do that, then do that, right? Because you don't want to be in anything halfway. It doesn't make you look good, and so that's how it goes. So maybe Tom, because of the thing in his head, like, hey, I kind of would like to be here for my family. Maybe that would kind of sap away a little bit, not necessarily of the drive and the passion, but a little bit of the focus, maybe. Maybe. I mean, maybe not the case with Tom because of the work that he does put in the offseason, but I'm just saying, like, if he's not all the way in, then he doesn't need to play. That's the thing. So anyways, back to the NBA for just a second. By the way, they announced the All-Star starters. I remember at the end of the show yesterday, they were coming in on TNT announcing the Western Conference and Eastern Conference All-Stars. In the Eastern Conference, I'm just trying to think off the top of my head. I know it was Embiid at center. That's, yeah, duh. You had Kevin Durant and Giannis, but Kevin Durant's not even going to play. So, my opinion, I think Giannis should have been the East captain to begin with. I think it should have been Team LeBron versus Team Giannis from the start. That doesn't make sense to me that Kevin Durant is, as great as KD is, he's an all-star. He ain't even going to play. This is the second straight year, by the way, that KD's not even going to be able to play in the All-Star game due to injury. So, KD is going to draft the team, but he's not even going to be playing with these guys. So I think because of that, keep KD, on the roster because he did make the All-Star game, but have Giannis, have Giannis Antetokounmpo be the captain. I mean, I think he's earned that right. I think he deserves that to be the captain to select the team because he is going to be playing in Cleveland on February the 20th. So, have him out there. That's just my personal opinion. But, in regards to the All-Star starters, you also DeMar DeRozan and Trae Young in the starting lineup. I know some people were saying, hey, should it be Zach LaVine because Trae Young's Hawks are 12th in the East, and I really liked Atlanta this year. They've been a complete disappointment. But my thing is, like, look, Trae's averaging 28 a game. He's averaging 28 a game. Like that's all-star worthy, all-star starter worthy. So I didn't have any problem with the starting lineups. Excuse me. I think DeMar DeRozan, although, the Bulls have kind of slumped as of late big time, but DeMar's had a great year. The Bulls are going to be in the playoffs easily. They're going to be a top seed. They and Miami are kind of competing for that 1 seed. And then, you've got Joel Embiid. I'll get to what I just laughed at in a second. But you got Joel Embiid, who is, I don't think it's getting enough attention. Joel Embiid is freaking balling right now. I think this is like his 5th straight game of 35 points and 10 rebounds. That's like Shaq numbers. Like 35 points, 10 rebounds in like 5 straight games. I don't know if he did last night against the Lakers, but the guy has just been phenomenal. Phenomenal. He's taking more shots down low. That was sort of a concern of people in the NBA. Okay, no, he had 26 and 9 last night. So, kind of a bum night, right? 26 and 9, but he was great. And I don't know. It's really interesting. I think Joel Embiid should at least get some consideration for MVP, but it is what it is. But, in the Western Conference, you've got people, there's like this kind of controversy about the West. Like, obviously, Steph, John Morant, Jokic, and LeBron. Like, nobody's arguing with that. They're obvious all-star starters. People are up in arms about, oh no, Andrew Wiggins cannot possibly start in the All-Star game. People are losing their minds right now. People say, oh, it should be Devin Booker. It should be Rudy Gobert. Here's the thing. First of all, no, it should not be Rudy Gobert. I'm going to fight you hard on that one. It is not Rudy Gobert. Stop. Okay. Rudy, as big of an impact as he has defensively for the Jazz, he can't, because I think this matters in the NBA. Excuse me. He can't do more than Andrew Wiggins. He can't. He can't do more than Andrew Wiggins can in the basketball court. You got to throw Rudy lobs. You need setups by Mike Conley and at times Donovan Mitchell, who's out right now. Is he the best shot blocker in basketball? Yep. I think it's a joke he's gotten 3 Defensive Player of the Year trophies. I think one of them should have went to AD. Another should have went to Draymond last year. Draymond hopefully is going to win it this year if he can come back in time to kind of be eligible for the award. But no, it's Wiggins is over Gobert. The Devin Booker thing I got mixed emotions about. Because it's weird. The Phoenix Suns have the best record in the NBA, and they don't have an all-star starter. It's crazy. I mean, Chris Paul, Devin, but especially Booker, are absolutely all-stars. Absolutely. But the thing for Devin Booker is maybe from the NBA's perspective, or from the fans' perspective, they're like, hey, we got 2 guards, Steph Curry, John Morant, two wings, Andrew Wiggins, LeBron James, and you got your big man, best big man in the West, Nikola Jokic. And so, but it goes to show you, this is why I love the Andrew Wiggins trade for the Warriors years ago. That's why I loved it. People are like, oh, this is a terrible trade for the Warriors. I said, no, this gives them so many options with the player and possibly with somebody else in the future. Like with Andrew Wiggins, what I was saying is he's a better Harrison Barnes. I remember saying that at the time. I'm like, he'll give them more than what Harrison Barnes gave them. And, in case you didn't notice, Harrison Barnes was in the starting lineup on a team that went 73-9. Like Harrison Barnes, no disrespect to him. I really liked him when he played. Didn't love him, but I liked him. He's, good wing, good defensively, can shoot the 3, can take you off the dribble, can dunk on your head. Like Harrison Barnes is an NBA starter. But Wiggins is a better 3-point shooter. Definitely has more in his bag. Like the guy has like Penny Hardaway moves. Gets to the rim better. Now, free throw shooting wise, he drives me crazy a little bit. I think he's around like 71%. I want that to go up to about 80%, to be honest with you. It's good of a mid-range shooter and 3-point shooter as he is. He's an excellent defensive player. He's got length. He moves well. Can take the best wing. I mean, think about in the play-in tournament last year when he took LeBron James. Did a pretty good job with LeBron. And LeBron still got his, especially in the second half, but Wiggins made it tough on him. You're not going to stop great players. You're just not. Great offense, beats great defense any day of the week. But Andrew Wiggins made it tough on LeBron, and that's all he can do. So not only do I have no problem with Andrew Wiggins being an all-star, I agree with it. Like I've been saying that on Twitter for weeks now. I guess I'm a biased Warriors fan, right? But I just got to say this about the Warriors, man. You see the Splash Brothers last night? You see them? You see that Steph Curry, the guy who has been just, it's been driving me crazy as a Dubs fan. Guy has been awful for like a month and a half. It's like the longest slump I've ever seen by a superstar in the NBA. Seriously. Like Steph has been awful. Well, last night looked pretty good. Shot 50% from the field, 60% from 3, 8 rebounds, 6 assists, played excellent defense, got 3 steals, was playing these guys one-on-one. Klay Thompson, on the other hand, shot over 50% from the field, over 50% from 3, 23 points. You see the Splash Brothers last night? I'm just saying. This is why I told y'all, when Clay gets back, by the time the playoffs are here, we'll have Klay Thompson, not the sort of mythical, the if Clay comes back Clay, if you know what I mean. No, we're going to have Klay Thompson back for the Golden State Warriors, like back in his best form, for the Warriors. But it's scary times in the Bay Area. Oh, we got some breaking news. Barry Grant Jr. has just, wow, how about that? According to Barry in the comments here, there you go. Brian Daboll, the new head coach of the New York Football Giants. How about that? So Brian Daboll is the head coach of the Giants. See if we can get any information on this. This is some pretty big news for the New York Giants, because look, their last three head coaches, let's just keep it real, have been duds. Ben McAdoo, Pat Shurmur, Joe Judge, the ultimate eye roll. This is interesting. I'm trying to see if I can pull some stuff up. But this is, like I said, this is some pretty darn big news. Let's see. All right. Brian Daboll. Y'all know I love Brian Daboll, though, as the head coach of the Bills. I thought he did a great job with Josh Allen. But okay, according to Ian Rappaport, and Schefter just now tweeted it, Albert Breer, so it's coming in right now. Jay Glazer just tweeted it. So all the insiders, appreciate the breaking news from our man Barry Grant Jr. of the All Even podcast. Y'all got to check his show out. But Brian Daboll is the new head coach of the New York Giants. Okay, quick reaction here. I see Alfred in the room here. I'll get him on just a second here to talk about the Hall of Fame. But just a quick reaction on this. Home run hire for the Giants. Now we're really going to see if Daniel Jones is the guy or not. Because what Brian Daboll did, and Josh Allen deserves credit, like the guy is spectacular. But you're considering with the Buffalo Bills, they do have a defensive coach. Now, Sean McDermott's as good as a defensive coach as you can get, right? But when you have an offensive mind like Brian Daboll, who helped the Bills offense, what's one thing that Buffalo was not good at over the course of the last year and a half? Running the football. Well, due to Brian Daboll's adjustments, designing some new schemes, Bills are one of the best running teams in football. I mean, like that, like in a dime. It's crazy. So that, to me, home run hire by the Giants. This is the first of the three hires thus far. This is the first home run hire by anybody. I hate it for my Cowboys, since the Giants can be in the same division. But hopefully by the time the Giants get anything going, Sean Payton will be in the division. That's what I'm crossing my fingers about. But there you go. Brian Daboll, the new head coach of the of the New York Football Giants. Is Daniel Jones that guy or not? We're going to see. We're going to see, because he's been pretty pedestrian the last 3 years. He's had his moments. There's been times where I've been like, I think Daniel Jones played well. He's more athletic than people give him credit for. As I say on the show all the time, people clowned him for tripping on that long run against Philadelphia when he could have easily scored, but he tripped and fell. But my thing was, hey, he got there. How many quarterbacks can get away, and get that kind of breakaway speed before obviously, tripping and falling over themselves? I'm not sure Mahomes could do that. Mahomes is the best quarterback in the league. I'm not sure he could do that. Josh Allen can run. Maybe Josh could do that, but obviously Lamar Jackson and Kyler Murray did for sure. Definitely could, but that's a home run hire by the New York Giants. Hate it for my Cowboys, but I don't think Brian Daboll will be so much of a home run that the Giants will be like playoff contenders next year. I think what you're looking at in year one for the Giants is, okay, can Daniel Jones mature into a true franchise quarterback? If he can't with this guy, he's not with anybody, and he's not your guy. It's that simple. Year 4, contract year. They haven't opted into the 5th-year option yet. We'll see if they will. My guess is they won't. Maybe they will, just to give him a little bit of extra stability. I would get that on the part of the Giants. But if he can't succeed with this guy, he's not succeeding with anybody. So the breaking news that came in on this show from Barry and is starting to just pour in from the insiders in the NFL. Jay Glazer and Adam Schefter, Ian Rappaport, Albert Breer, Brian Dable, the new head football coach of the New York Giants. So, okay, with that, I'm looking forward to this one. It is the host of the Metropolitan Report. It has been a minute since he's been on the show. He was on the show in December when all of us, along with Mike Guido and John Rivera, Ryan Flowers, oh gosh, who else? Obviously Alfred was in there. I hope I'm not forgetting somebody else. I think that was it. We surprised Barry's return to the podcast world. So without further ado, it is Alfred Parsard Jr. is on Carving It Up Live. How you doing, my man?
I'm doing good. Looking forward to talking some Hall of Fame baseball.
Oh gosh, this one is one I talked about it at length on my show yesterday, and it's, to me, my biggest issue, Alfred, is this sort of notion from the Hall of Fame writers. I'm not going to say all of them because Bonds, to my knowledge, got over 50% of the vote. But my biggest issue with the writers is that they have this sort of self-righteous, holier than thou, like steroids is the only bad thing that ever happened to baseball. And like it's the only sin that we can keep guys out of the Hall of Fame of. Let me just start by asking you, Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, Alex Rodriguez, do you think those guys are Hall of Fame players or belong in the Hall of Fame?
I had this conversation with our good friend Barry a couple of days ago. And my issue is, these were guys, great, their numbers are amazing, phenomenal, once-in-a-generation talents, right? Barry Bonds, of course, 500 stolen bases, 500 home runs. In today's game, that's going to be unheard of. I don't think anybody gets a career like that. But I feel like, and some people will tell you, oh, well, they use PEDs and they use steroids, and that doesn't make you a better player, right? Because it's either you have it or you don't. But yeah, it doesn't make you a better player. But if you're already good or great, it's going to enhance your skill because you get that extra strength to crush home run balls. So, I mean, yeah, they're Hall of Fame numbers, but I think they made the right call, not voting Barry and Clemens in. Now, my thing is this. Now, some people will say, well, yeah, Mike Piazza's your guy, right? He was a user. Yeah, but when they confronted him about it, and when he got found in the same report that everybody else did, he admitted to it. All Bonds had to do was say, yeah, I did it. And the baseball world would be okay. Like I personally feel, and then all the evidence, he had orders from the Balco lab. The guy who owned Biogenesis and Balco spent years in federal prison because he was selling these things. They found manifests, they found orders. Like, just fess up to it and say you did it. I mean, it's all in the proof. Yeah, he never tested positive, but when those tests first came out, those tests weren't foolproof. I'm pretty sure there were a lot of guys in during 2004, 2005 that evaded tests, and as medical science and time has gone on, those tests have become, they've become harder to pass through. So, but what I really want to touch on is the list of names other than those three who didn't make it, because some of those guys got compelling cases, if you don't mind.
Okay.
So also on the ballot, aside from David Ortiz, who did get in, you had A-Rod, you had Barry Bonds, you had Roger Clemens, you also had Scott Rowland, Curt Schilling, Todd Helton, Billy Wagner, Andrew Jones, and Gary Sheffield. I think that it's a travesty Billy Wagner didn't get in. If my knowledge of baseball is correct, there are only 6 closers with more saves in Major League history than Billy Wagner. That's Mariano Rivera, Trevor Hoffman, Lee Smith, K-Rod, Francisco Rodriguez, and John Franco. And so Wagner is 7th all time in saves with 422. He played 16 seasons. In the 16 seasons that he played, he finished top 10 in the National League in saves 10 times. Those are not easy feats. Not easy feats at all. So how he didn't get in was mind-boggling to me. Lifetime ERA of 2.31. Todd Helton is another guy that
Yeah,
I feel
I
should
agree
get
with you
in.
there.
Now, I get the argument because I've had this conversation with people several times. Todd Helton is a guy, when you think of all-time great first baseman, he's not your first, second, third, fourth, or fifth thought that you may come across. However, when I think about what he's done, not only in baseball, because his numbers are not bad. Todd Helton, if you look at Todd Helton's if you look at Todd Helton's career numbers, his career batting average is 316. The guy hit 300 for his entire career. Had a little over 2,500 hits, 369 homers, and over 1,400 RBI. I mean, yeah, he's not in the 3,000 club, but for a guy to consistently hit 300 for your entire career, that's no easy feat. Not to mention, look what he did for the Colorado Rockies franchise. When you think of the Colorado Rockies, outside of Larry Walker, he's the second most notable figure in franchise history.
Yeah.
So, and then that's not even including Story and Arenado, who are more recent. But so who else was on this ballot? That Kurt Schilling, debatable. Love him or hate him. I mean, he pitched with the bloody sock for your Boston Red Sox. Pretty much the guy's been a Yankee killer his entire career, even when he was in Arizona in 2001. But you can make an argument there. And then some people want Scott Rowland in the Hall of Fame, but I don't think he's a Hall of Fame caliber third baseman. But granted, he did win that World Series in 06 with the Cards. He was an NL Rookie of the Year and an All-Star 7 times and 8 Gold Gloves. So I guess he's on the borderline too. But I definitely think Helton Wagner should have definitely gotten in.
I got you. And kind of my thing is, you say about Bonds, for example. Okay,
Mhm.
he didn't come out and fess up. Yes, I took the steroids. My thing is this: initially, neither did Pudge Rodriguez. He got into the first ballot. Pudge talked about like when they asked, he had lost like 40 pounds, something ridiculous, and he said he had just ate salads and walked after dinner. It's like, no, stop it. But he gets in on the first ballot. My thing is this: you say, okay, the steroids make you better or not, whatever. But the other guys that were taking the steroids, the average players, they were putting up these numbers. I'm not saying Bonds was the most likable guy. Matter of fact, Bonds was kind of a jerk. Like anybody in the media who covered him, especially with the San Francisco Giants, did not like him.
Nope.
And he was not an easy guy to like whatsoever. It's probably the biggest reason, along with the steroids. But I would say the biggest reason he wasn't as embraced when he did pass Hank Aaron is it's not an easy figure to wrap your arms around. Hank Aaron was. So I think that's my issue, is sort of we'll let some guys in, but other guys not in. Like even Big Papi, my man, the reason I'm a Red Sox fan, David Ortiz, and along with Dustin Pedroia. I mean, the guy still kind of tries to hide behind it a little bit. Not that it'd be something you'd just be proud to say, but he still tries to hide behind it a little bit and is like, act like it doesn't happen, and he gets in. And I'm thrilled that he got in. Thrilled. But don't let some guys in and just push others to the side. I mean, it's at the end of the day, what the Hall of Fame is it's a museum to tell the story of the game. And
correct.
That's what it is. And when you exclude a guy who has the most home runs ever, are we going to acknowledge him as the home run king like we do Hank Aaron? No, I'm not. You're probably not. Most baseball fans aren't. But you also have the guy with the most Cy Youngs. The Pete Rose one will never, I'll never get over that one. The guy with the most hits, Charlie Hustle. How you can exclude all three of those guys, it's a museum. You can't tell the story of the game without those guys.
Well,
that's my biggest issue.
The Pete Rose thing, I've been an advocate for Pete Rose to get in since the beginning of time. Reason being is because, yeah, he bet on baseball, but if you look at his bets, he never bet against any team that he managed or played for. He always bet on himself. So how can you be mad at a guy like that?
No, I mean, you can't.
I think his lifetime ban should be lifted, and I think he should go into the Hall. I mean, that's a travesty in and of itself. And the fact that Rob Manfred had a chance to give him his eligibility back, but when he asked him, "Do you still bet?" and Pete Rose said yes, he was like, "Oh, he hasn't learned from his mistakes." He's not even active in the baseball community. So
it's ridiculous, man. And it's just the fact that, listen, if he was like the 1919 Black Sox betting to get, okay, you got
that's
me.
different. Yep.
Yeah, it's very, very different. But he bet against his own, or like I totally like excusing and saying he should or shouldn't have bet as a manager. That aside, he bet on his own teams. Pete Rose being the competitive guy that he was and still is. And he's probably taking that into a route that maybe isn't the greatest, but he's saying, I want to win. I mean, there's nothing about me that doesn't want to win. And so I don't know. It's just ridiculous. But we've got a few comments here from our guy, Barry. He said, just curious, baseball has been doctoring balls since the 90s, but players using a substance that wasn't banned. Maybe all those players in that era should be banned too. Just saying. MLB wants to remove these guys from history. They need to give billions of dollars back that they made off these players. Bud Selig shouldn't be in the hall either. And what these writers don't want to acknowledge going into a different set of players is that you have the strike in 94.
Yep.
The home run chase saved baseball, Alfred.
It did.
It saved baseball. Yep. It saved, McGuire Sosa. Yep. And so to have those guys literally save your sport and to disregard them, you're disregarding them from baseball history is what you're doing. Go ahead.
You also got to remember, Major League Baseball, unlike the National Hockey League, the National Basketball Association, and the National Football League, MLB prides itself on the integrity of the game.
Yes.
Anytime that you do something in MLB that they think is disrespectful to the game of baseball, no matter how minor it may be, they will punish you as hard as they can.
And it's what bothers me about, and I love baseball. I love, I always will, but they act like there's this, and what bothers me too, if we want to go here, because I did on yesterday's show, is that, if we want to talk about integrity and treating the game the right way, how about that time when you wouldn't let, blacks and Latinos participate in your sport? Like, are we gonna wipe that under the carpet when, I used the example yesterday, not saying they should remove this guy because what you're doing is telling the story of baseball. But Ty Cobb was one of the biggest racists the game's ever had. Okay. They're not going to exclude him from the Hall of Fame, but you're saying racism isn't as bad of a crime. Hate and exclusion isn't as bad of a crime, so to speak, than steroids. Again, I'm not excusing steroids, but the way they pick and choose how guys get in or don't get in is really baffling to me. It really is.
And then my other issue with the Baseball Hall of Fame, and I was planning to go to Cooperstown pre-pandemic, but then the world shut down, so I haven't got a chance to go yet. But my biggest issue with the Hall of Fame in baseball is that how do guys lose eligibility? That doesn't happen in any other sport. So because you're on the ballot 7 years and don't get in because you need votes from one writer in every city, that's you can never get in. Guys like Kenny Lofton, who was a heck of a player, will never see Cooperstown unless he goes to visit and buys a ticket. Like is not so many. So Dale Murphy is another guy. Guy was a multiple time MVP, and he's not in the Hall. So certain guys will never get in, and because they've been on the ballot long enough. Even guys like poor Buck O'Neil, bless his soul, lobbied to get in the Hall of Fame, and then he gets in posthumously through when they had that whole deal with the Negro Leagues, when they inducted like 90 Negro League players after they acquired the rights to the museum. So it's just like, baseball. As much as I love baseball, and yes, it is my favorite sport, they gotta treat some of these retired players and potential Hall of Famers better.
100%. And it's like, let me use this example. If you're going to talk about the NFL, of my Dallas Cowboys, Drew Pearson, the man is the original member of the 88 club. Like you have Michael Irvin and Des Bryant. Now CeeDee Lamb's wearing number 88. He retired in 1983. He just got in the Hall of Fame last year. So eventually, now I thought it's a travesty he had to wait that long, but the writers finally came around and said, yeah, come on, man. Hey, let's get Drew Pearson in the Hall of Fame. He's earned the right to. This sort of 10, you make a good point. This sort of 10-year limit is really weird. And what's going to end up happening is Pete Rose is going to pass away one day and they're going to put him in.
Oh yeah. And that's what they always do. It takes a guy to pass away before you can give him his flowers and induct him. Because the same thing, Buck O'Neil, till the day he died, and people were lobbying for him to get in the Hall of Fame. As great of a Negro League career as he had with the Kansas City Monarchs, and then even became the first black scout in the majors. So everybody wanted him in. And then the other thing that just frustrates me with their Hall of Fame, they have all these committees. There's a Negro League committee, a Today's Game committee, a wartime committee. Like, come on, how many committees are you gonna have and to put these guys in? So yeah, there's a chance Bonds will get in, because if you read the fine print, there's a committee, a Today's Game committee, that can get him in after a couple of years. But why couldn't he get in on the initial ballot?
And honestly, my gut tells me he's not going to even get in on that committee, to be completely honest.
No, I don't see it, because, like you said, he was a jerk. He had Jeff Kent has gone on record. When he was a San Francisco Giant, say what you want about Jeff Kent, he wasn't the most likable guy, but he didn't like Barry Bonds to the point they fought in the clubhouse once. So, I mean, Bonds was never the most likable guy. He was never a good media guy. Unlike Big Papi, the media loved that guy.
Oh, yeah, well, of course, yeah.
When he had a situation where he got shot, and when he was home, and the Red Sox airlifted him from the Dominican Republic, he came back to Boston with so much love.
Yes,
you'd have thought the Pope came out of the Pope mobile. So
yeah, I remember that.
So Big Papi's always been, and that's what I also think about baseball too. Certain guys, if they're good media guys, they'll get more favorable votes.
And so that's the thing. Is it the players that are best with the media Hall of Fame, or is it the Hall of Fame? Like, make your decision. Don't let some guys in and exclude other guys. Like, I'll use an NFL example. Terrell Owens was one of the most disliked players by fans, media, other players. I remember they did a football life. Yeah, teammates. They did a football life on him on the NFL Network, that show they do. And I think it was Steve Young was the only one of his former quarterbacks that wanted to do an interview about Terrell Owens. Like Romo, McNabb.
Jeff Garcia?
Jeff Garcia, who's been in the news lately. He didn't want to do the interview. And so, yeah, but T.O.'s in the Hall of Fame. Now, it shouldn't have taken 3 tries. That they delayed it a little bit, but ultimately he's in, right? You look at guys, let's look at the NBA. Michael Jordan. Now, nobody would ever could said Michael Jordan's not in the Hall of Fame, of course, but he goes up in his Hall of Fame speech and just disses people. He just takes shots at people the whole time. But he's the greatest player ever. Barry Bonds might be the greatest player ever.
Mind you, Jordan didn't even want to be in the Hall of Fame until after he died. According to him, the Hall of Fame is only for people that have passed away.
I don't get it. Got a couple comments here from Barry. The 2 most corrupt sports in the world in order: international football and Major League Baseball. And also, and this is a good point too, I thought about this. And also, you need 75% to get in. Bonds got 250 votes. You need 290. 40 is not the majority. That's the thing. You're allowing these stick in the muds to determine whether guys are getting in or not. That's my issue, is these, again, I know I keep circling back to it, but we like to pick and choose what sins, quote unquote, are unforgivable.
Yeah.
We like to pick and choose what we're good with, what we're not good with. And let's be real, morally, there are a lot of issues that a lot of Hall of Fame players have had, and nobody had blinked twice or thought twice about them being in or not. And I don't know, man. I think it's ridiculous.
And to put another nail in the coffin, baseball makes themselves look really uptight and stupid, because if you remember correctly, there was no Hall of Fame class last year. What sport do you know that doesn't have a Hall of Fame class in a year? In Canton, every year there's some type of induction. In Springfield, Massachusetts, so there's always some type of induction. Cooperstown, if they don't feel like voting anybody in, there's no induction.
It's so dumb. It really is. It is incredibly dumb. And I mean, because I remember, was it last year that Jeter got in? Because obviously he was supposed to get in 2020, but the pandemic.
Yeah, they inducted him last year, but he was class of 2020.
Right. But
there's no 2021 class.
I've never seen anything like it. I really haven't. You good on you for mentioning the other guys that didn't get in, that have really not much controversy attached to their name, certainly in regards to steroids. But it seems like it bothers me that these guys put in so much, that the guys who use steroids, the guy who didn't use steroids, and ultimately their place in history is determined on whether they were liked as people or not.
Yep.
If you say it out loud, that's what it is at the end of the day. But I don't know. But listen, this is a conversation we could have for hours on numerous guys throughout the history of baseball. But Alfred, I really appreciate you coming on as always. By the way, is you got any new news on the Metropolitan Report? I know we were talking about it the other day.
We're gonna be starting back up. We're gonna take a look at the lockout. We're gonna take a look at what the Mets are gonna look like should spring training ever start if this lockout ends. And I'm planning a career retrospective on Keith Hernandez, since we're gonna retire his jersey number this year. So lots to look forward to.
Absolutely. As far as your Mets, the last question, I'll let you go. What is today, January 28th, 2022? What is your expectation? Maybe not necessarily what you even think they'll do. Your expectations for the New York Mets. Because they had a great offseason. They added Max Scherzer. They added all these guys in free agency. What's your expectations?
It depends on Freddie Freeman because he's a free agent this offseason. If he stays with the Braves, wild card. If he leaves the Braves, we're taking a division. If he moves on to another division in baseball.
So that's it. Freddie Freeman holds the fate of the New York Mets is what you're saying.
I think so.
Okay.
That Atlanta team, 88 wins and you win a World Series, unheard of.
No, especially in the worst division of the six in baseball, without a question. Shocked us both, really. I remember having you on the show multiple times. You're like, what's going on right now?
I knew they would beat Milwaukee, but I didn't have them going all the way.
I had them getting swept by Milwaukee, so that shows you how smart I am. All right, Alfred, appreciate you coming on the show. Have a great day, and look forward to having you on Carving It Up soon.
No problem. Before I go, yes. I love your new graphics, I must say.
Yes, yeah. I appreciate it. Yeah, listen. Give credit to Ryan Flowers. He designed them. And Barry designed the new logo down there. So I appreciate it. Shout out to both of those guys. But yeah, they've been big time. But yes, I do love this new logo for sure.
All righty, bro. I'll see you.
All right, see you, man. That was Alfred Parsard Jr. of the Metropolitan Report. Great guy. Very knowledgeable of the game of baseball. Go check out his show. I cannot wait for him to make a return to the Metropolitan Report because, look, he covers the Mets, but he covers baseball in general. So there's a lot to discuss. I'm about as excited for the 2022 season, if we have a season, than any in recent memory for baseball. But I mean, he makes good points that the writers. Yes, we get that they control the fate in other sports, but they're not this rigid in the Basketball Hall of Fame. Think about the Basketball Hall of Fame too. It's not like the NFL. It's the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Basketball, it's just the Basketball Hall of Fame. So we got the NBA, WNBA, college. Like you got a lot of options there, and so these writers in baseball, man, they're just so stuck in the past. They're hypocritical and they're stuck in the past. I remember Alfred and I talked about this. We talked about it on his show. I remember I was on there last year, and when he came on this show, I think it was July after or during the All-Star break, and we were talking about. I remember the whole White Sox issue with Tony La Russa, old school. You have to play the game the right way. Let me be real with y'all. Yeah, you play the game the right way, playing your tail off. You play your tail off, that's playing the game the right way. If you're smart, coachable, good teammate, that's playing the game the right way. That's it. Maybe even not even the good teammate part, right? But it's ridiculous. It is ridiculous. John hits the nail on the head in the comments. He says the MLB is outdated. And that is coming from a fan of the most iconic sports franchise in America, the New York Yankees. I mean, even the Yankees are just stuck in they're stuck in 2009. They're stuck and look, I get they have the most illustrious history of any sports franchise, and that turns my stomach to say that because you see the hat I'm wearing right now. For the podcast audience, it's a Red Sox hat. But even they're stuck in the past. I don't get it. Student of the Game 225 says, Basketball Hall of Fame is great. Cheryl Miller never played basketball in America, is in the Hall deservedly. That's what basketball and football do. And football's getting a little better at this. They still got a ways to go. But the two are like, do they deserve to be in? Or like, have they put the time and the effort, and did they produce on the field or on the court in a way that we're like, you know what? They should be in the Hall of Fame. People let the bad outweigh the good in Major League Baseball. This is my issue with politics. I don't lean left, I don't lean right. Both sides drive me crazy half the time. But anytime there's some sort of legislation, good or bad, from the Democrats, from the Republicans, the other side is just like, no, it can't be good because it's from the opposition. I'm like, well, how about the fact that how about we let the good outweigh the bad? If the bad outweighs the good, let's get rid of it. The good outweighs the bad. Let's pass this sucker. But it's people who are rigid, stuck in their ways, and have a view of baseball that is stuck in the 1950s. It really is. It really is. I've always said this about baseball. It's been my biggest issue that, with celebrations, NFL, basketball, like, you can celebrate. But, if I just think about the degree of difficulty, because hitting a baseball is one of the hardest things, if not the hardest thing to do in sports. Literally. Because first of all, it's 1 on 9. At best case, it's 4 on 9. Like, if you got 3 guys on base, which I don't even know if you consider that 4 on 9, but you're having to put the ball in play. If I hit a big home run, right? I remember when Jose Bautista years ago in a playoff game, it was an elimination game. It was the Toronto Blue Jays and the Texas Rangers, and it was tied in like the 7th inning. So it's crunch time at the whole ballpark in Toronto. It's tense, and guy throws just just cheese right down the middle, and Jose Bautista sends that to the moon in left field. And, it's the iconic. Jose hits it. His expression literally does not change. And he just tosses his bat right in celebration and pops bubblegum. It's like, man, that was epic. And I remember after that game, the pitcher, I can't remember the guy's name. He's irrelevant. But the guy said, he didn't say, gosh, I gave him an easy pitch to hit. I didn't like how he celebrated. That was very, that's not how you do it. That's not how you treat the game. Like, what is the game? A child? Come on. Student of the game 225 says MLB is the only sport that doesn't penalize celebrations. Basketball is attack and football is unsportsmanlike conduct. Yes, but, excuse me, with baseball, there's this hanging cloud of play the right way, show no emotion, do it the right way. I hear that a billion times. You play the game the right way. Stop. You play the game the right way. It's like John just says in here. He says unwritten rules. And Student of the Game 225 says, if you score or make a big play, you should be entitled to celebrate. Because you know why? If we're a fan of a team, this is why, at least before all the affair stuff came into play, this is why Tiger was so beloved in golf. Because Tiger showed such a tenacity and a killer spirit, a killer will. He pumped his fist, or, he cursed. He was human. He was showing his human side of things, right? Because we're at home, we're pumping our fists. We're saying, yeah, Tiger. Maybe if our team does something great, maybe a word or two comes out of our mouth. That's part of the emotion of sports. That's why we love sports. There's a reason athletes cry when they win championships or if they win MVPs. That's what makes it special, is the emotion. It's imperfect humans going out there and competing against one another. That's what baseball is. That's what sports is. And so for baseball, no, you can't show emotion. What are they, robots? I hate it. I love baseball, hate the unwritten rules. And Student of the Game 225, right on the money. Tim Anderson of the White Sox has made bat flips iconic, and I love Tim Anderson. Love him. The old school guys despise Tim Anderson. I think Tim Anderson is great for baseball. First of all, he's a great player for the White Sox, shortstop. but he is outstanding. And I love his celebrations. I'm sorry, it wasn't Tim. I was talking about the White Sox earlier. It wasn't Tim Anderson. It was I think it was Yerwin Mercedes was the guy's name, the catcher who swung, God forbid, swung at a 3-0 pitch. I mean, think about that. In what other sport do we say you have to stop playing hard when the game is out of reach? Excuse me? No, sir. It's a 9-inning game. Like that instance, it was like the 7th or 8th inning. No, I'm still playing hard. Like I still got to possibly rack up these stats to get incentives. That's why people hate these athletes when they get suspended. It's so devastating because they won't. Some of them who maybe aren't on huge contracts aren't going to reach their incentives. We've seen the NFL every year, right? The last week of the regular season, these guys trying to make their incentives, trying to get an extra money. Make some extra money from those incentives. And John says the Bautista bat flip was epic. I loved it. And soon the game 225 says, yes, Mercedes was swung at a lollipop thrown by the opposing team's backup catcher. Forgot that part, the backup catcher. Like the Rangers, I think it was the Rangers. They were down was it the Rangers? I think it was. They were down 10-0. And I don't know if it's the Rangers or not. I think it was. The Twins. Okay, as soon as the game 225 says the Twins. The Twins were down 10 runs. And Mercedes, it's a 3-0 count, and he hits it to the moon. And Yerwin Mercedes' own manager was mad at him. I've never heard of a coach in football or in basketball get mad at a guy for dunking on somebody or throwing a touchdown when the game is out of reach. I've never seen it before. Never, and we'll probably never see that. And Sue the Game 225 says exactly what I've said on the show many times in these instances with Major League Baseball. And we're hopefully not, but we're probably going to have segments like this during the regular season if there's a regular season. He says, if you want me to stop scoring, then play defense or throw better pitches. I go back to a Cam Newton story from his MVP year. And I'm not even the biggest Cam fan, but Cam scored a touchdown, extended what was already a big lead over the Tennessee Titans, and was dancing and doing his Superman and all that. And a Titans linebacker came up and got in his face and was all salty about it. And there was a little scuffle, not a fight, but a little scuffle in the end zone. And they were talking about, how could Cam be so disrespectful? And Cam said after the game, he put it quite simply. You don't want me to dance? You don't want me to celebrate? Don't let me score. I ain't celebrate if I ain't scoring. Was Cam Newton doing a ton of celebrating against the Denver Broncos when Von Miller and DeMarcus Ware were in the backfield every play? I didn't see him doing a ton of celebrating. It's that simple. You don't like it? Stop it. If you can't stop it, they deserve to celebrate. It really is that simple. It's not hard. A lot of people just jealous because they can't do these things athletically. And Sue the Game 225 says, don't forget the Rangers threw a fit when they were down 8 runs and Tatis hit a grand slam on 3-0. Yes, that was in 2020. I remember doing a segment on that too. Oh boy, the softness of the old school baseball heads. It drives me crazy. I'll tell you what doesn't drive me crazy though. It is NFL Conference Championship weekend. Here we go. Let's go and get the music going right now. And we're going to start with the AFC Championship game. We got 4 teams left. You got the Cincinnati Bengals, who are the 4 seed, finished the regular season with a 10-7 record, won their division, one of the toughest divisions in football, the AFC North. You've got the Kansas City Chiefs, who are looking to make their 3rd consecutive Super Bowl. Has not been done since the New England Patriots of a few years ago. They're in their 4th consecutive AFC Championship game, all of which have been in their house, Arrowhead Stadium. Now, this was not as tough for me to predict as Niners and Rams, but I will say this. The line for this game made this really tough, like really tough. And I think there's a lot of people possibly they're going to bet +7 Cincinnati. The Chiefs are favored -7. I wouldn't be shocked if that line goes to 6.5. Or maybe even 6, depending on how the betting in Vegas goes. but I thought about this, and it comes down to this for me. The Bengals offensive line, folks. It is the worst offensive line playing in the AFC or playing in a conference championship game in nearly a decade. Since the Colts in 2014 with Andrew Luck. That line, I got some Bengals fans who are pissed at me for this. That line is about as bad as I've seen. It is atrocious, especially the tackles. It's hard to watch. It's hard to watch. Joe Burrow was sacked 9 times last week. That ties a playoff record. Sacked 9 times. And not to take any credit away from Joe, because I love Joe Burrow. Love him. I think he's special. I think he's fully capable. I mean, crap, he's in the AFC Championship Game in his second year. He's outstanding. He's the first number 1 pick quarterback, by the way, to do that. It's never happened before, to get to the AFC Championship Game in your first 2 seasons. And so, for Burrow, for Chase, Higgins, Mixon, the weapons they have offensively, they can get whatever they want against a bad Kansas City secondary. You see that secondary last week against Josh Allen and the Bills? Let's just say they struggled. Let's just say they couldn't get a stop whatsoever, especially late in the fourth quarter. Josh Allen got whatever he wanted with Gabriel Davis, Cole Beasley, Knox. Got whatever he wanted. Keep in mind the last time these two teams played, 34-31, Cincinnati on a game-winning field goal. Keep in mind that the Bengals went up and down the field on the Chiefs. I think Sunday is going to be more of the same. Bengals going to go up and down on Kansas City. But Chris Jones, I'm going to predict right now, is going to have 3 sacks. Chris Jones of the Chiefs is going to have 3 sacks. The other guys in that defensive line for Kansas City, they're going to get to Joe Burrow. And it's not Joe Burrow's fault. That O-line is atrocious. You say, well, they won last week. The difference is it's Ryan Tannehill. This is Patrick Mahomes. So I mulled over it. Should I take Kansas City to cover or not? Ultimately, what it came down to was this. Cincinnati's secondary isn't great either. And against the number 1 pass defense in football, the Chiefs scored 42 points. I have the Kansas City Chiefs winning this game by a score of 41-30. I think we're going to have a fireworks show, folks. 41-30. Kansas City wins it over Cincinnati. Cincinnati, if you heard their practices, they're playing loud crowd noise at practice to get ready for how loud it's going to be at Arrowhead Stadium, because it's going to be rocking. Okay? It's going to be cold. You know, I'm not sure exactly what the weather's going to be in the Kansas City area, but you know, being that it's January, it's going to be cold in that area. On Sunday, the highest 48, so maybe it won't be quite as frigid as it was last week for Kansas City, but Bengals are used to cold weather, of course, and so going to Kansas City, I don't think the loud crowd is going to faze them all that much on offense, but I do think the defensive line of the Chiefs definitely will faze them. So I've got the Kansas City Chiefs winning this game 41-30 and getting back to the Super Bowl for the 3rd consecutive season. Moving on now. I can't wait for this game. Moving on now to the NFC Championship Game. And not to say I'm not looking forward to the first game, because I can't wait. But I struggled with this one. The San Francisco 49ers, the 6th seed, they had to win on the last game of the regular season against the same Rams in that same stadium just to get in the playoffs. They did. They came back from 17-0 down, won the game in overtime. I believe it was like 30-27 was the final score. They finished 10-7, 2 playoff wins over my Cowboys and over the Green Bay Packers. The Cowboys one broke my heart. The Packers one gave me gave me great joy. It really did. As for the Los Angeles Rams, they won the division, NFC West, with a record of 12-5. They're the 4 seed, beat the Cardinals badly, and survived by, as Al Michaels said, the skin of their teeth. And so you have a situation where Sean McVay is a great offensive coach, no question about it. I give Kyle Shanahan a slight edge, and here's why. First of all, he's won 6 straight games against Sean McVay. 2 of those games have been with backups. And he's still beating Sean McVay. You have a situation where he's got Jimmy Garoppolo. I like Jimmy. I've always liked Jimmy. But the Niners have won their 2 playoff games in spite of Jimmy. Because Garoppolo got the Cowboys back into the game single-handedly twice in the fourth quarter 2 weeks ago. And until that last drive was awful against the Green Bay Packers. It was the special teams of the defense that kept them in it long enough for him to give them one last drive to win it at Lambeau Field. So, third time these teams are playing. The Rams are favored -3.5. I got news for Rams fans. This is going to be a 49ers home game. SoFi Stadium tried to, in their own way, kind of bar 49ers fans from buying tickets by saying the only people that can buy tickets need to be from the greater Los Angeles area, which I thought was total BS. Hated it. They lifted it after one day. 49ers fans are going to take over SoFi Stadium again. Book it. And so I think this is going to be close, nip and tuck. Niners are going to run the ball well. Jimmy G is going to play better than his last 2 games. I have great confidence in that. I say George Kittle's going to have a big game. I say Nick Bosa is going to get to Matthew Stafford twice. And I think it's going to come down to the final 2 minutes. And I think the Rams are going to have the football. And I have bashed Matthew Stafford all year, saying you got the best roster you've had in your life, in your football life. You got to win this game. You got to get to the Super Bowl. He'll be in a position, I believe, on Sunday night. And I believe he comes through. I got the Los Angeles Rams winning 26-23 for the second consecutive week on a game-winning walk-off field goal by Matt Gay. He'll boot it through the goalposts. And the Rams, for the second time in the last 4 seasons, will be in the Super Bowl. That is what I think is going to happen. I got the Chiefs winning 41-30. I've got the Rams winning 26-23. If you notice, there was no If I Were a Betting Man segment. That is gone. Maybe I'll bring it back for the Super Bowl just to bet, who covers or, who to take with the points, depending on what the matchup is. But no If I Were a Betting Man this week. I wouldn't bet this week at all. I have no idea. Honestly, can't say I'd be stunned if Cincinnati won. Not after the way last weekend went. Absolutely not. Wouldn't be shocked if Kansas City won. But there you go. I think we're going to get a rematch of, in my opinion, what was the greatest Monday Night Football game in the history of the NFL. 3 years ago at the Coliseum, it was Chiefs versus Rams. Jared Goff was the Rams quarterback, of course, at the time. And the Rams won that game. I believe it was like 54-51. We talk about fireworks shows, like it got ridiculous. But you had defensive touchdowns. You had long touchdowns on the first play. It was insanity. And if we get that at SoFi Stadium on the last game of the season, oh my gosh. Oh my God. I can't. It's going to be amazing. That's what I think it's going to be. Chiefs come out of the AFC and win the Super Bowl. Win the AFC over the Cincinnati Bengals. And the Rams, I don't feel overly confident in this pick, but I believe the Rams will beat the 49ers, and they themselves will also get to Super Bowl 56 in their home stadium, becoming the second team ever, and ironically, the second consecutive team to play the Super Bowl, the biggest game in American sports, in their home stadium. I can't wait to see the ratings for this week. I'm sure the boycotters are just going to come out in full force, not watching these games. I'll save that for later. Let's see. John just says take Cincinnati with the points. I'm not against that at all. Not at all. Barry says the bill has come due. Barry, are you talking about your guy Matt Stafford? Or are you talking about me giving Stafford credit maybe? I remember I said going into the playoffs, Yeah, I remember saying going into the playoffs that, Matt Stafford, in order for me to kind of get off his back, had to get to the NFC Championship game. And be a big reason, like not be like a Jimmy Garoppolo where you're not the reason your team is here. Like Matt Stafford, I feel like he had to play well in both playoff games, and he did. He was outstanding. Well, I wouldn't say he was outstanding. He was really good against the Arizona Cardinals. That was more about Odell and the running game. And then the last week against Tampa, when it looks like his team was going to have the collapse of collapses, he came through. 2 clutch throws to Cooper Kupp, the last of which got them in a field goal range, and they won the game. Like Matt Stafford outdueled the greatest quarterback ever in his home building. I think he deserves massive credit for that, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give him credit he deserves. Okay, here we go. Conference Championship weekend. Can't wait. First game will kick off at 3 Eastern, noon Pacific on CBS. Again, the Chiefs are favored -7 if you want to bet that game. And then the NFC Championship game will kick off at 6:30 Eastern, 3:30 Pacific time on Fox with the Rams favored -3.5. I can't wait for both of these games. And Barry says Stafford has been the man. You know what? In the regular season, he really wasn't the man. I admit to you, he wasn't. He disappointed me big time in the last month of the regular season. But he has turned it on a dime in the playoffs. He's been great. Can't hate on him whatsoever. He's been outstanding. And look, you know what? When you got guys who have come up short over and over and over as Matthew Stafford has, and you doubt them like I have, I'm happy to see him get here. Genuine. I'm genuine. I wish he hadn't beat Brady to do so, but it is what it is. And Barry says both. You were bagging on him all season. Now, his numbers look good except for the interceptions of the regular season, but there were too many games like against the 49ers, both games, against Green Bay, the Ravens. Like there were some games, even the Seahawks game was just a mess. There were some games like, golly, Stafford, this is like you're turning into the Detroit version of yourself. But again, the postseason is where resumes and legacies are built. That's what it is. That's what it's all about. Aaron Rodgers is not a top 5 quarterback. Why? He hasn't showed up at the playoffs. It's that simple. I'm not saying if you're great in the postseason and bad in the regular season, you should be an all-time great. It's not what I'm saying. But you got to either be an equal version of your great self. If you're a great player, you got to put up the equal amount of production in the postseason as you do in the regular season. Or if you're even if you're that guy, greater production. I mean, that's what the all-timers do. And that's what Matthew Stafford is doing. And I give him immense amount of credit for it. Absolutely. And I think it's not that I didn't think that it wasn't the Lions' fault, because I think the Lions are about as poorly run a franchise as there is. But I thought Stafford did deserve a little bit of blame for their struggles over the past decade. Nah, it's Detroit. It's Detroit. And meanwhile, they're stuck with this guy. But it is what it is. So with that, that's all the time we have for today's show. I appreciate everybody stopping by, as always, at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time, Facebook Live, YouTube, and Twitter. You can catch us at that same time on Monday, where I will obviously react to both conference championship games. Can't wait. If it's half as good as last weekend, I'll be glued to my TV. And Monday's show is going to be epic. So have a great weekend, everybody. Enjoy the games. Stay safe out there. God bless you all. Peace out. I'm out of here. See ya. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube. Be sure to click that big red subscribe button and go check out the other clips and full shows of Carving It Up Live. Have a blessed day.